Okay, can you see the slide clearly?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is our bar problem. Actually, this is P, right? I changed to P, not B, but P. The bar is subjected to some loadings, consists of concentrated load, capital P at the right, and actually distributed load. This is P actually, okay? And then we want to determine the deformation. The deformation expressed in terms of the displacement. And also later we want to determine the internal force distribution or stress distribution, okay? So we have discussed that we have two options of stating the problems. First is called strong or classical form in the forms of differential equation like this. So the problem is find the displacement field such that satisfies this equation. The first one is the governing differential equations, okay? That's actually comes from equilibrium equations. This is the normal force, derivative of the normal force in equilibrium with the external force in the body, okay, in the along the bar. It means x from 0 to L here, okay. While on the boundary, we apply the boundary conditions. We have two types of boundary condition. This is displacement boundary condition. This is force boundary condition, okay. In mathematics, we call this is Dirichlet boundary condition, and this is Newman boundary condition. Alternatively, we can also state the problems in weak or fractional form. So the same data, it means geometrical and material data, and then also the loading data or external actions, okay, consists of loading and temperature change. The problem is to find a compatible or continuous function Ux such that for all an arbitrary virtual displacement field, okay, the field of virtual displacement satisfying boundary conditions here, this integral equation is held, okay. This is the integral equation or the weak form of the governing equation. The method that we are going to talk about, the finite element, based on this. So this is the basis of the finite element formulation. This is called the weak statement of the problem. Now I'm going to formulate the finite element for solving this bar problem using the simplest element, that's linear element, two nodes, linear element. Okay. Before that, it should be noted that the strong and weak forms are equivalent in the sense that if we have a solution from the strong form, then it's also the solution of the weak form, and conversely the same. Okay, it means if we have U is solution of the weak form, it's also the solution of the strong form. In other words, the two forms are equivalent. Because if not equivalent, it's a different model, right? And nonsense because we talk different models. But the reality is the different the forms, the strong and weak forms are equivalent. Okay, that's the fact. We can prove this, but the proof is given in my book. You can read by yourself. I will not discuss the proof, okay, because it's maybe involves some mathematics. Okay, our topic today, our focus today, okay, the main topic is how to apply the variational or weak form or variational equation to get the finite element equations. Okay, this is our main topic today. Well, we have a bar, right? For convenience, let's remove first the spot, just like the SMP, right? We remove the spot and then we define the degrees freedom like this. D1, D2, D3, D4, D5, okay? Let's say the bar is divided into 4 elements, for example. Of course, this is arbitrary number, okay? You may divide into 8 elements, 6 elements, or 2 elements, or only 1 element is up to you. But here, just for illustration, I divide the bar into 4 elements. So this is element 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the nodes. The element that I am going to formulate here is 2-noded bar element. It means one element have 2 nodes because actually we have also, it's possible to have different element. For example, quadratic element. One element has 3 nodes, 2 at the ends of the element and 1 at the middle of the element. It's possible to formulate, but in this course, I'm going to talk just the simplest one. Okay. Well, we know that our principle of virtual displacement equations consists of 2 parts, that the virtual strain energy and the virtual work of lateral forces. Well, if we divide the structure into elements, we can write the strain energy and work of the lateral forces in as a decomposition of individual elements. Okay, like this, I mean. So this is the virtual strain energy total for the whole structure is the summation of or the contribution from the element. Okay. Similarly, this one, the work of the external forces, also the contribution of all elements. Of course, in this example, only 4 elements. It means this is 1 to 4, 1 to 4. This is if we look the whole structure, I mean the structure as a whole. But in deriving finite element, we can also look element as an individual. Okay, so if we look each element as an individual, we see that if the whole structure in equilibrium, each element also should be in equilibrium. Otherwise, the whole structure is not, right? For example, if you have some one element not in equilibrium, of course, the whole structure also not in equilibrium. So if each element in equilibrium, of course, the principle of virtual displacement we can apply for any element. For element 1, element 2, element n, okay? In other words, we have this equation for each element, right? The principle of virtual work equations for each element. So we can use these equations for formulating the element. In other words, it's enough because all of the elements similar is enough for us to look at a typical element, okay, to derive the element equations. So again, in formulating the finite element, we can use the global point of view, okay, it means the whole, and then we write the delta U and delta W as the summation of the element contributions. Or we can look from the local point of view. It means for each element, 1, 2, 3, and so on. And in this course, I'm going to use local point of view. It means directly we see a typical element like this, okay? So this is a typical element. I take one element, it can be 1, 2, 3, or 4 because we release the spot, right? No problem. And then formulate the element. For example, element number 3, and then this is become the typical element, okay? So let's consider a generic 2-node bar element. Let's say this is not element number E, okay? This is not power, but E. Refer to element number, okay? D1, D2 belongs to element E. FAE and FA2 belong to element E. LE is the length of element E, okay? So this is not L to the power E, no. But it means just element number. Well, if we separate the element, of course, the element should be in equilibrium. If we only cut and then without providing any force, most probably the element is not in equilibrium. So we should provide the force here. Okay, so this is equilibrating force to make the element remains in equilibrium. I call this is FA. A from applied. We applied the force at the knots. Okay, this is the structural knots or joint. I call joint, okay, for the structural knots. This is the element knots here. Okay, so a kind of interaction. This FA2 we may regard as kind of a type of an interaction force between the joint and the element knots. Okay, so the interaction. Just to simplify the writing, I remove the index E. So initially we have index superscript, okay, E. Just to make it simple in writing, I remove E. But all of this we should remember that all of this refer to not structure but element, okay. Even though I remove, we should always remember that what I'm talking is refer to element, not to structure. So for subsequent discussion, is always refer to element. Okay. So this is X. It means not global coordinate, but local here. Even though I didn't write that this is XE or that one. Okay. Because we have two types of coordinate, right, in here. Go back to here. We have global, capital X, and for each element we have local. So this is local coordinate system. Okay. Well, as you know, P is distributed axial force along the bar. For example, the unit in the unit of kilonewton per meter. For example, we have also displacement field U over the element. Okay, at any that's the displacement at any point X. Okay, within the element. As usual, in formulating finite element, it's very convenient to work in matrix. So we collect the displacement D1 and D2 into one vector called capital D, bold D, I mean, bold D, bold small d. This is D1, D2. D1, D2 is this degrees of freedom. These degrees of freedom are nothing but the displacement. So we take the degrees of freedom is the displacement at node 1 and node 2. Axial displacement or longitudinal displacement, okay? U1 and U2. And then the applied, we can regard also this is internal force, because this is when we cut, this is nothing but the force at cross section, right? Or this is also equivalent to, actually not equivalent, equal to the normal force. Of course, in normal force we should take care about the sign convention, but the magnitude is equal to the normal force. So the applied forces is equal to the normal force actually in this case. So we collect them in this vector FA1 and FA2 as usual. I think you have been familiar with this, okay? And then now let's apply the principle of virtual displacement for this element. What the principle say? Can you remember? Can you say by your own words? Please try. In my words, the element is in equilibrium. So for any disturbance or any virtual displacement that I apply, the internal virtual strain energy must be equal to the virtual work of external forces. But what is delta U? Virtual strain energy is virtual strain, actual stress, this is actual, okay? This is crossover area, this is the X. We integrate over the along the element or over the element, okay? Over here. So the integration goes from 0 here to here. The element length, okay? The element length. So L, again, this is not the whole length, not the whole bar length, but the element length, okay? This is the delta U, virtual strain energy. How about the virtual work of vector forces? We should see that what forces apply here. First, axially distributed force. So the virtual work is given by this one. The virtual displacement times P dx. We integrate this over the element. So what is work? What is virtual work? Basically, virtual work is virtual displacement times force, right? This is force. P dx is force, right? Because P is the unit of force per unit length. So this is force times length. Dx is length, right? The length of infinitesimal part of the bar. We integrate, it means we sum all of the virtual work along the bar. How about at the ends of the bar, at the node 1, we have virtual displacement at 0, right? Virtual displacement at 0 times FA. This is FA. At node 2, also similar. Delta U at here, L, times the force at node 2. Okay, we have written our weak form equation. What's next? This is important to understand. The standard finite element method use the weak form. The next, we should approximate. So this is approximate the displacement. We don't know the displacement here. Well, I just assume that the displacement along the element have some distribution that we know already. That's approximation, right? So this is very important to understand. So the first and fundamental step in the finite element formulations, once we have the weak form, next is to approximate the displacement. How about the virtual displacement? Later, the virtual displacement, we just take the same form as the displacement with approximation. That's finite element, okay? That's how we formulate the finite element. This is the basic principle. So if you want to make a cake, for example, or bread, you will need some flour, right? Flour, eggs, what else? Other ingredients maybe, okay? And then you can process it to make a cake. To make a finite element, we need what? Two things. The weak form and then approximation of the variables, the primary variables, the weak form, in this case, displacement. And for the virtual displacement, we take the same form, okay? So actually, we just need to approximate the displacement because later we copy the form for the virtual displacement. Okay, here we go. So for two-noded
excuse me.
bar element, yes.
I want to ask about.
Can you speak loudly? I cannot hear my computer. Yes.
Hello, sir. Is better?
Yes, clear.
Okay. I want to ask about the previous equation.
This one?
Yes, about the external side. Yes. Is P is regarding the FA and FA1? Oh,
This is external force, right? At the
Yes.
end here. And
It's P not caused by FA1 and FA2. So if we sum it like that, it's double the force.
No. You mean P? You think P causes by FA1, FA2?
Yes, sir.
No. P external. We apply, for example, in reality, what? For example, you have pile foundation. You drive it into soil. There is friction, right? Along
Yes,
the
sir.
bar. That's like that. Friction is
Oh,
external force. So it's maybe friction, okay? Maybe other force. So this is not internal, but external. It's different,
oh,
not the normal force, okay?
okay, sir. So the cause of P there.
This is given.
Oh, that's given. Okay.
But the cause may be from friction, from the self weight. If we put the bar like this, of course, at its point it works gravity, right? And we
Yes.
can say that we have P, right?
Yes,
Can
sir.
be caused by the self weight, magnetic force. If this is a steel and then we have magnetic force here, or maybe due to centrifugal force. If this is rotation, right, we have centrifugal force. That's also in the category of that's in application, right? But in our model, it's called P.
Okay.
The source can be friction or others.
Okay, sir. And one more thing, sir, about the direction about in the arrow of a FA1 and FA2.
In the element, this is element, right? Our
Yes.
element. This is joint, structure joint. Of course, this is action reaction. So we see just the element. We see that this is we assume in our derivation all to the right, because to make it easy in our derivation, all the same direction. We assume like that. Of course, later if we find the result is negative, it means the opposite. Okay,
Okay.
that's
Okay.
our assumption that all positive. So to make non-negative here,
Okay, sir.
of course
Thank
the
you, sir.
actual can be negative, but that's in number rather. Okay, actual number.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So again, we have the weak form and we should approximate the displacement because we don't know the displacement. The displacement is the variable that we want to seek, right? We want to seek, we want to find it. So approximate. And then for two-noded bar, within the bar, we approximate, I approximate the displacement is linear. The graph, of course, is linear like this, okay? Maybe a straight line. Okay, it means this is maybe U1, this is U2, but U here is UX. UX, that's our approximation H. Okay, so the displacement inside, or not inside, along the element, we approximate. So this is approximation, use the symbol H. This is approximate displacement, use linear for two-noded bar. So this is called linear element because basis the basis for assumption is linear basis, okay? Linear polynomial, okay? Well, what is A1 and A2 coefficients? But unknown coefficients is, yes, we can express the problem in terms of unknown coefficient, but in finite element, we don't want to express the unknowns in terms of unknown coefficients. We want to express this in terms of nodal displacements, okay, D1 and D2, or U1 or U2, because we have U1 and U2 right in here. What should we do? Okay, we should express A1 and A2 in terms of D1 and D2. That's our task. So we have these assumptions of displacement. Using these assumptions, at node 1 on the left, right, that's x0. If we plug in this into this equation, it's become A1. But u at 0 is nothing but D1, right? The degrees freedom at node 1. Is it clear? At node 2, the x is L. We just plug in into this. We get A1 plus A2L. But this is nothing. According to definition, is the degrees freedom number 2. So from here, we get already what is A1. From here, we can determine A2, right? A2 is, maybe this is, I write wrong. It should be small, right? sorry, this is A2 is equal to D2. Let me revise my slide. It should be like this. D2, okay. A2 is equal to D2 minus A1 over L, okay? Or LE, or here just L. Then this is, but what is, sorry, this is not capital but small d, D2, but what is A1? A1 we know already, that's D1, right? So this is D1. D1. This is of course L. Okay, sorry, capital L. Any questions? So once we express the coefficients in terms of D1 and D2, just plug in into this one. Okay, so we put this into this into this, we get this. Or we can write as this one. Okay, so the approximation function is some functions times nodal displacement 1, and then some other functions of nodal displacement 2. This function called shape functions actually. Okay, okay, we can write like this. So our approximate displacement is a function called I called n1 that multiply d1, another function n2 that multiply d2. Or we can write in sigma notation like this. This is like this, right? Sigma notation. This function called shape functions. That's the shape function is this, right? And this shape function applicable for the whole bar. It means from 0 to L. This is also 0 to L. So we have two shape functions, N1 and N2. This is the shape functions corresponding to node 1 or degrees freedom 1. This is corresponding to degrees freedom number 2. So in other words, we express the approximate function in terms of shape functions. Or in other words, we approximate the unknown variables as the linear combination. Linear combination, it means multiplication and summation, linear combination of nodal values and shape functions. Okay, like that. Okay. Well, we can write in sigma notation. We can also write in matrix notations. Okay. In my book, I use sigma notation. You can read my book. Okay. But here I use matrix notation. So a little bit different from my book, but it's good. You can see the same thing from two different angles, right? Sigma notation or matrix notation. Just notation, okay? Doesn't change the essential things. Doesn't change the basic things, okay? Just the notation. So in matrix notation, we can write like this. Agree? I denote this matrix using capital N. So this is called matrix of shape function or shape function matrix. D is the nodal displacement vector. So we can write in terms using matrix notation that our nodal displacement is ND, shape function matrix times nodal displacement vector. Matrix N is also called the matrix of interpolation functions. Why? For the reason that the functions, all of the functions inside the matrix interpolate the displacement field from the nodal displacement. Okay, like this. I mean, if we draw the graphs of the shape functions, okay, N1, it's always 1 here at node 1 and 0 at other nodes. Shape function N2, this one. Okay, the graph. This is the graphs of the shape functions. Linear. This is called linear shape functions. Standard linear shape functions. Of course, the graphs is just a straight line because that's linear, right? This is the illustration why the interpolation functions called why the shape functions also called interpolation. Okay, because if we have two displacement values here, okay, we can construct a linear distribution like this. Okay, we can regard this as consists of summation of this one, the blue one and orange one. Okay, this one, the summation, and then we divide it into by u1 becomes this one, and this is divided into two. U2 become this one, right? So the total of this is u1 times this function. This is shape functions. This is two. This is function. This is called interpolation because now if we know u1, u2, we can use the shape functions or interpolation function to know the values between them. Okay, just like interpolation, right? We know the values here, just interpolate from here. Just how to interpolate? Just multiply this with the shape functions or interpolation function here and shape function interpolation here. So that's why it's also interpolation function. Well, let's talk about before we continuing with further with the finite element formulations. Let's talk a little bit about properties of the shape functions. The first property is interpolation property, also called Kronecker delta property, because it satisfies 1 and 0. It means like this graph also 1 here, 0 at others, 0 here, 1, 1, 0. It means the n1. If this is x1, is 1, but if this is x2 or not equal 0. So this property is called interpolation property, also called Kronecker delta. This is taken from the name of a person, Kronecker. Okay, Germany, I think. Okay, I forgot, but I think Germany. You can search in Google, right? Kronecker, called Kronecker delta property. The other properties of the shape functions, the summation of all shape functions is 1. Okay, so if you sum up this plus this, it become 1. This is called the partition of unity property. The summation of all is 1. Okay, this is partition of unity. So at least this is two important properties. Okay, of shape functions. Well, again, we approximate the displacement over the element or along the element with this one in matrix form, right? And the well, in our weak form we have strain, right? Let me show you. We have stress, but stress is function of the strain, so we should calculate the strain. Once we know the displacement, it's easy to calculate the strain. Just use displacement strain relationship or kinematic equation, right? That's just derivative of the approximate displacement with respect to x, or the derivative of this one. But what is n? N inside n is or I may explain like this. The derivative of this matrix is another matrix. I call B. Okay. So the approximate, this is the strain, the strain that consistent with the approximate displacement. Okay. The strain that comes from the approximate displacement that I call epsilon h. I write BD. This is called strain displacement matrix. But what is B? B is the derivative of n. Okay, this is coming from this. So the definition. This is just definition. I give the name for the derivative of the n is B matrix. But what is B matrix actually? That's the derivative of what is n. N is this is n1, n2, right? N1, n2 is 1. Okay, functions. Then the derivative of this one is minus 1 over L, right? 1 over L. The derivative of this 1 over L. So I can take the 1 over L outside the matrix, so become like this. Okay, this is called displacement strain or strain displacement matrix. So we can write the strain like this, DD. Well, we need stress because yes, in our virtual displacement expression we have stress. So now we can once we know the strain, it's easy to calculate stress because we know the constitutive equation. The constitutive equation is just like this, right? This is called the strain that consistent with the approximate displacement sigma h is E epsilon h minus alpha t, right? But what is epsilon h is this one, okay? Any questions up to this point? So we make use here the basic relationship, kinematic equations, constitutive equations. Where is the equilibrium equations? My question is that not yet used, right? Later we using the weak form. That the weak form is actually equilibrium equations. Here we just use the kinematic and constitutive equations. Well, as you can see, let's go back in our expressions that we have defined the sigma, okay? Sigma h, we can replace by sigma h, okay? But here we have virtual displacement and virtual strain. How about that? As I mentioned before, as I said before, that in finite element, we take the same form for the virtual displacement as the actual displacement. Okay. So to apply the principle of virtual displacement, we should define the virtual displacement. How to define it? Well, imagine that our bar is in equilibrium, right? And then we disturb by virtual displacement. That's the principle of virtual displacement, right? We disturb a little bit by delta U. Of course, if we disturb it by delta U, we have at node 1 delta U1, right? So we define a factor delta D. That's the virtual degrees freedom, okay? For node 1 is nothing but virtual displacement at node 1. And for the node 2 is the virtual displacement at node 2. Okay? Or we may imagine that I disturb just the displacement here, delta D1 and delta D2. You may imagine like that. Delta D1 and delta D2, only here we disturb, and then the rest, we take the same form. We can say like that, okay? The rest, we can, the virtual displacement field, take the same form as U, right? Before we have U, right? The form of U is like this. The actual displacement is the shape function matrix times the nodal displacement vector. So we just replace this one, okay? Delta D. That's we define the virtual displacement. For the virtual strain, by definition, is the first derivative of virtual displacement, following the same concept, the same definition for the actual strain. So we can write the virtual strain is B delta D. Okay? Okay. With this, now I think we are ready to use the principle of virtual displacement. With this definition again, we have the virtual displacement or the weak form already. We have approximated the displacement and virtual displacement. So we approximated like this. Actually, this is approximate displacement. UH, right? Approximate displacement. So once we define this and this, we are really ready to formulate the finite element. Okay, just plug in all of this into this one, the virtual displacement equation. Okay, let's go on with that one. So we have two sides here. The left side is the virtual strain energy. The right side is the virtual work of the external forces. And then for the virtual strain energy, we will use approximate virtual strain and approximate stress, but A is exact, right? It means we use the exact area, cross-sectional area, just approximate the stress and virtual displacement. But virtual stress is this one, yeah, according to the causative equation, right? And then what's this? That's B delta D from this one, yeah. Okay, that's from that one. This is I use transpose for the reason that because this is scalar, right? If scalar with transpose, it remains the same. So I can write like this. Why should use transpose? Because later we will find that we will use matrix notation. Without transpose, it will not be consistent with the other notation, sigma notation, I mean. So in order to make the equation consistent with other notation, if we use matrix notation, we should use transpose. This is the reason I use transpose here. Okay, to make the resulting equations be consistent with other format. So I use transpose here because delta epsilon transpose remain the same. So what is delta epsilon h? Is B delta D transpose. This is E scalar. What is epsilon h? This is BD minus alpha TA. Okay, and then we can write this is delta D transpose because, you know, if we have a matrix, two matrix A, B, this is two matrices, and then we transpose, the result is what? It's B transpose, A transpose. Okay, in reverse order. Okay, B transpose first and then A transpose. So this is delta D transpose, B transpose. This is, I think, EBD, ADX. I spread the integration. This is the first term. This is the second term. Okay, same, but here the second term. Any question up to this point? Up to this point. So I plug in the approximate stress and the virtual strain to the to here, and then get this one. But please, if you have any questions. Which one is constants with respect to S? For sure, constants is not function of X inside these integrals. That's D, right? D sure not function of X because that's nodal displacement. That's the position already fixed at the ends, right? So we can take it out of integrals here, and we can also take delta D because as the n nodes, right, here. So the integrals become here. Also, this the same. Delta D, the transpose, we can take it out from the integrals. So this is the expression for the virtual strain energy. Okay, any questions? That on the left side. On the right side, we have virtual work of external forces. That's this one, okay? So what should we do? We should, add node 1 and node 2. That's the virtual displacement, right? At this one. And at this one. I just rewrite, give notation, the virtual displacement at 0 is, I write delta U1 because that's corresponding to node 1, this is corresponding to node 2. And FA1, FA2, I just write in matrix form, nothing, just rewrite in matrix form to make consistent because I use matrix, okay, with others. Here I just use delta UH transpose, okay. So I put delta UH transpose here, and then what is delta U? From the previous one, we know that's this one, right? Delta UH is N delta D. So this is the definition of the virtual displacement for finite element formulation, N delta D. P dx. This is what? This is nothing but delta D also, because by definition delta D is the nodal virtual displacement at nodes, right? So this is delta D transpose, this is FA. We recognize that this is FA. Any questions so far? So we have two equations now. Oh, furthermore, we have this one, and then we can write, of course, as usual, this we can put outside the integrals. So this is the expression we have for virtual work of external forces in terms written in matrix and virtual displacement. Any question? So in summary, this is what we have done so far. We have the expression for virtual displacement. We have the expression for virtual work of external forces. Well, the principles say that this should be equal, right? Delta U should be equal to delta W. This should be equal. But equal for what condition? For any virtual displacement, right? For any. In other words, for any delta D, because the virtual displacement depends on delta D. So this is applicable, should be applicable for, this is for all delta D. Delta U and delta W here should be applicable for all delta D. Because of that, what happened? We can cancel delta D. We can remove delta D from the equation. So we can delete, because these equations holds for all and arbitrary delta D, right? In summary, finally, we have these equations from the principle of virtual displacement. Do you recognize what's this? Inside the integrals? This is something, a matrix, okay? Actually, a matrix times displacement vector becomes a force. This is force on the right-hand side. This should be and must be a stiffness matrix, right? The stiffness matrix. This is what? Force. If this is force, we should sum up with force. So this is force. Another force. Force, this is the force that we apply to balance, to make the element in equilibrium. And this is another force. What force are they? We call equivalent nodal force, right? Equivalent nodal forces. This is due to P, this is due to temperature, increase or decrease. Okay, here we go. So this is the matrix formulation, the finite element. So we have the element sequence matrix like this from here, right? Matrix. We have applied nodal force that we don't know yet, but we can compute this. Okay, this is called equivalent nodal force due to P. That's distributed as a force, okay? I call FP. And this is, I call FT. The force due to temperature change, okay? So, actually, this is, I should write that. We can write the finite element using this notations, we can write the finite element equation like this, right? What's this? K, right? KD equals FA plus what's this? I called FT, right? Plus FP, sorry, this is FP, F sub T. This is called equivalent of the force due to temperature, force, this is FA. Well, any questions so far? We get the equations, the discretized equations, element equations. That's this one. Or in matrix notation, this one. That's the definition. Please, if you have any questions. Well, now let's go further. Let's calculate the stiffness matrix. If the bar is prismatic, as usual, the bar element, I mean. Let's say the bar element, we have bar. Please don't forget that we have bar. The bar can be prismatic or non-prismatic, no problem, right? Because when we divide it into elements, let's say 4 elements, we can assume it as prismatic, okay? Even though non-prismatic, we can assume as prismatic. So for prismatic element, again, we consider just element, not the whole bar, okay? Don't be confused. Here, again, I talk about element, not structure, okay? So the stiffness matrix for the element, according to this one, right? I just copy. But what is B? Let's say the bar element is prismatic. It means the cross-sectional area constants, and made from homogeneous material it means the modulus plasticity is constant. So we can take it outside of integrals and write here. Okay. But what is B? B matrix we know already here, right? Previously we defined the B matrix already. Okay. For the two-noded bar element, no problem. This one. So we just copy this, plug in this into the equations. No problem, I think. See, right? This is B. This is B transpose. Transpose, it means like this. And then integrals. And then we perform the computation like that one. So we have this one. This is just matrix multiplications. Okay. Row times column. Okay, this one. Rows times column, this one. Second row times columns. Row columns, this one. But we see that all constants doesn't contain any variable x. So we can take it outside integrals. But what's the integral of this? What's the integral from 0 to L dx? Please give me answer. What's the result?
L.
Come on. Yes, for sure. L. So this is L. So the result is this one. That's the stiffness matrix, okay, that we know already. Okay. But here we derive with the principle of virtual displacement. Before we derive using equilibrium directly, okay? And this way, the method is powerful because maybe you wonder, how about if we have element, but okay, I have the problem of bar, non-prismatic bar, okay? Non-prismatic bar, maybe like this. And then we divide into 2 elements. Of course, we can model using this, using 2 elements, right? Let me use another color. We can model it. For example, take the middle cross section. Okay, we change into this one, right? The model. But it's also possible to use the original model, the tapered. It means you use tapered element like this. Can we formulate the stiffness matrix for the tapered element? So this is my questions. What if the bar is not prismatic? Bar element, I mean. Bar element. So this is, I should emphasize, not the whole bar, because we can model bar either using non-prismatic element or bar. But I want to develop, or I want to invent a new element that's also exactly not prismatic like that. So this is, I should call bar element. That's if the crossover area varies linearly along the bar element. Okay, can you evaluate the stiffness matrix? Sure can, but of course not use that one, not use equilibrium anymore. But we use this formula, right? What's the change here? This becomes not constant, right? Also another case. Have you ever heard about here we assume that the material is homogeneous. It means that E constant throughout the bar. But have you ever heard about a type of material called functionally graded materials? Have you ever heard? It's a kind of material that changes the mechanical properties gradually. It's popular in Japan. Okay, so there are some papers, research paper about that. Okay, and for that material, E is not constant; it's function of X. So we can also develop the stiffness matrix using this formula. Just change this into function of X. For example, let's E constants, homogeneous, but A non-prismatic. Okay, like this. Let's say the bar element, again, this is not structure, okay? Because some students confused with structure. Okay, so we want to invent a new element where the element is not prismatic. This is the area is A1 at node 1, at node A2. The element length, this is I should call element, is L, okay? Well, just like the linear distribution for the displacement, we can use the shape functions also to express the distribution of linear distribution. So this is the distribution in linear varying cross-section area. It means we can express like this. So our shape function we can use for expression of linear distribution. Once we know this one and this one, okay, A1 and A2. So this is AX, our AX. Our cross-section area is function of X. So just plug in this into the equations. Okay. The details of the computation again in my book. Okay. And then you will get this result, the same result. But with the A, what is A here is the average A. This is the final result that I get when I wrote the book. Okay. The details of the computation for to save the time here, okay, the lecture time, I just not deriving mathematically, because that's easy mathematics, right? Just integrals, easy integrals, not difficult integrals. You can check by yourself. So this is the average area. So in other words, taking the area in the middle is exactly the same as we use exactly prismatic bar. Okay, again, because of this result, we know that taking the area in the element, in the middle of element, taking the average area is exactly the same as for linear bar element is exactly the same as using the non-prismatic bar. Okay. Of course, the element can be any, maybe not here, not like this, can be in general, maybe not linear varying, maybe like this, our beam, okay? Oh, not beam, bar, okay? This is not linear. And then we want to divide how many elements. For example, I want to divide into, up to you, Example, I want to divide into 4. Okay, 4 elements. How to determine the area here? A1, A2, A3, A4. The best one is to be consistent with the this one, right? And I found for any distribution of area, because this is area is not linear function. Ax is non-linear, right? The function along the bar is non-linear. And for this is called non-prismatic bar, but not linear, okay? For non-prismatic bar in general, we can use the same formula, but a bar here is just use this one, okay? The average area. The average is by definition is the integrals of the area and then divided by L. And this is valid, okay? So it's quite easy to have a non-prismatic element in bar problem. Just use this the same formula as prismatic, but change the area using the substitute area. And the substitute area is defined as the average area. Okay. Any questions regarding the stiffness matrix? Of course, you know that for prismatic bar, the result exactly the same as when we derive when we talk about truss, right? Well, when we talk about truss, we didn't talk about the body force or not the body force. I mean actually distributed force, P, actually distributed force here. But in addition to the end forces, in truss we only talk about end forces. We have another force, that's distributed force. And of course, in the finite element of this problem, we should calculate also this one, right? External force due to distributed force by using this formula taken from the previous one. In order to calculate this, to determine this force, we should know the distribution of P in our problem. Let's suppose that not the body force actually. This is the axially distributed. I should maybe rewrite. Now suppose that the axial distributed axial force, this distributed axial force, okay, varies quadratically like this, okay, with the values given here, P1 at node 1, P2 at node 2, and PM at node in the middle node. Okay, so because this is a quadratic distribution, we should have 3 data, right? So this is the data when we know P1, P2, and PM. Of course, we should construct the function, the mathematical expression for this function. How? You can use your traditional mathematics knowledge. Given these 3 values, you can construct this. Of course, you can, I believe, right? Construct a parabola, a quadratic function, right? But I have a convenient formula that's called Lagrange interpolations. Okay, so I use Lagrange interpolation formula to construct the function for P as function of X. The Lagrange interpolation formula is like this. For I1 is the first interpolation function. We use the formula X minus XM. So this is XM. It means, let me draw. We have X1 here. This is XM. This is X2. So that's Lagrange. And then divided by the coordinate of node 1, and this is 1 minus xm. This is just copy and then just replace this with x1. But the coordinate, this is just variable, right? X. The coordinate xm is L over 2, we know. This is x2 is L. x1 is 0. This is this one. So using this definition, S is just X over L, we can write that the first equation is 2S minus 1, S minus 1. Any questions? Have you ever learned about Lagrange interpolation before in mathematics?
Yes, I think.
Yes.
Yes, I think. In mathematics 4, if I
So
remember.
we can construct a polynomial, right? Using Lagrange interpolation, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the middle, that's x minus x1, because this is if this is m, this is without m. X minus x1, x minus x2. So this is sm minus x1, sm minus x2. So but this is 0, L. This is L over 2, 0, L over 2 minus L, and we got these results. S again is this one, okay? The third interpolations, this one, the same without M, without 2 here, 1 and M, okay? We get these results, right? So using these results, we can plug in this into this one, and then compute the integrals. The computation is in my book, okay? The details of the computation, just nothing but that's calculus, integral calculus computation, simple calculus. Maybe senior high school students can do it, okay, to obtain this one. So this is what the equivalent nodal force due to P. So if we know PM and P1 and P2, we can calculate. This is the length of the element divided by 6. 2 times PM plus P1. This is 2 times Pn plus P2. That's for quadratic, right? If we have a quadratic force distribution like this. How about linear? Linear, we just need two data, P1 and P2, right? What in the middle? What happened in the middle? In the middle will be 1/2 P1 plus P2, the average in the middle. So we can use this formula. And then plug in this into this. No need to derive again. Of course, we can derive again, but no need. Just use the quadratic, because linear is a special thing of quadratic, a special case of quadratic, right? Quadratic with P1 and P2 independent, but PM is this one. That's become linear. So we can plug in this into this one to obtain this one. So this is for linear. This is become P1, P2, P1, P2. You can prove by yourself, okay? The details of the calculation is my book. Please, if you have any questions. My questions. How about if the force is constant? What will be the equivalent of the force? So if we have a bar element, okay, and then subjected to constant distributive force, it means the graphs is like this, okay. This is P. What will be FP? Can you give me answer? Just simple calculation. Come on, I'm waiting for you. Let me take rest moment. And Miss Angeline can do filling in the attendance list, okay?
Okay, sir.
Okay, let me take rest for about 5 minutes and then think about the equivalent nodal force due to constant force distribution. Okay, I return. So what's your answer? For constant axially distributed force. Distributed axial force.
PL/2.
Yes, exactly. So the external force is L/2, P and P, right? Okay. So now let's talk about interpretation. What's the physical meaning? Let's say I have a axially distributed force. Actually, I should write here not B, but P. B is my notation I used in the past, but now I use P instead. P, okay. Of course, this is also P, right? But this is in the past I used B. Sorry. So you see that if this distribution is linear, it means during the finite element quotation, the actually distributed force, the actual distributed force, when we model into finite element, it becomes the equivalent distributed force applied to knots, because this is nodal, right? Knots with the intensity given by this one, L/6. This is at knot 1, this is at knot 2. Okay, that's the interpretation. It means what? In the discretized model, remember that when we talk about finite element, is discretization, right? It means from continuous model, the bar is continuous model because the displacement is at any point, it becomes discrete model. And then how about the loadings, the force, distributed force, also become discrete because at the nodes given according to this formula, okay? That's the interpretation. Another interpretation, we know that we have these equations. Let's say there is no temperature change, right? K D equals FA plus FP, right? Plus FT. Let's say there is no temperature change, so we can drop this equation. And then let's say the bar is fixed like this. In other words, D is equal 0 because we fix this. D is equal 0, right? Order displacement. So this is 0 because K times 0 is 0. And then from this we get this one. What does it mean? What does it mean? What is FA? It means the applied nodal force or the support reaction here is equal to minus equivalent nodal force. In other words, I can write like this. The opposite of this one is equal to the support reaction. It means if we have the force like this, and then we compute the equivalent nodal force, and then negative, it means the sign becomes to the left. It means that the support reaction, right? That's the meaning, or maybe you can call this is fixed end forces, right? In the slope deflection method, fixed end forces. So it's like fixed end forces. The negative of the equivalent nodal force is equal to fixed end forces if you name it fixed end forces. Okay, that's the interpretation. Any questions up to this point? No. Okay, good. So we have calculated the stiffness matrix, and also we have obtained the equivalent nodal force due to axial distributed axial force. How about temperature effect? Not yet discussed. Okay, now it's time to discuss it. Suppose now there is no mechanical loads, or okay, mechanical loads is okay also, but also the bar, let's say, undergoes temperature change, the degree Celsius. Let's say the bar have the constant thermal expansions constants. It means made from homogeneous. Homogeneous, it means E constants, but also alpha. Alpha is the constant thermal coefficients, constants. And then we can prove later using the same principle that we can show that Ft is like this, given by AE or EA alpha T minus 1, 1. Okay. The equivalent nodal force due to temperature change is equal to this one. How to calculate this? It's very easy from definition. Which definition? Let's go back. Of course, this definition, right? From this one, right? That's the equivalent nodal force. Temperature. We have discussed this, but not yet discussed. Okay. So let's discuss about this. Talk about this. Copy this one first. Okay. Copy this one. Oh, not in here. I should move to another slide. Sorry. This is already finished. Another slide. Yes, this is already finished, right? Let's move to here. So we can prove that the temperature equivalent nodal force due to constant temperature T is this one. Okay, how to prove that? Okay, due to constant temperature, this is temperature increase. Okay, because the temperature distribution also can be not constants. I mean, here maybe 5 degrees, but here maybe 10 degrees, and then linear like that, and so on, okay? But here we assume first constants. So use this formula, and then calculate which are constants. Okay, this is prismatic, so A constant. Homogeneous, it means E and alpha constants. T also constants. So we can take this outside of integrals, all. It's because not function of x. But we see that this are also constants, so we can take it outside integrals, and the integrals just integral 0 to L dx. What is integral 0 to L dx? Is nothing else, so we can make this. That's proven already, okay? So that's proven. What does it mean? It means in the finite element computation, we convert the effect of the temperature to become nodal forces, okay, given by this formula. Okay, it means negative, it means like this, okay. I can draw like this. Okay, so the force actually like this and like this. Negative, it means the magnitude of the force is AE alpha T. This positive AE alpha T. So a temperature increase of T is equivalent to this force. Okay, the effect of the temperature increase is equivalent to the effect of this force at the nodes. So that's equivalent of the force. Okay. Any question? Well, these four constants. My question. If you don't have question, I have, of course. Later you will have assignment about this, but let's take exam first. Okay, let's focus on the exam. After this, you will have some assignments. Maybe not only one, maybe 2 assignments about bar. I don't know. Depend on the assignment. Maybe I can just 1 or 2 assignments. Okay, one about the bar model itself, the second about finite element. Okay, but what if the temperature change varies? For example, if linearly distributed temperature, it means T is function of X. Can we use this formula? Of course, no. We should use this formula with T function of X. So if linear temperature change, we can just use shape functions, okay, to construct the distribution of T as function of X, okay. Use this one, right? Element length, temperature at node 1 plus X over L temperature at node 2, and then you plug in this, and then you will obtain these results, okay. It's very pleasing because similar, right? AE alpha just change this, become a fresh temperature, okay. So if you have a linear distributed temperature change, don't worry, okay. The formula is the same, just change the temperature here, by the fresh temperature. But for quadratically, formula a little bit complicated. The formula is given. So the contribution of the 4 is higher than T1 and T2. Because we have 3 data for the quadratic, right? Quadratic temperature. We have theta here, and here. It means the temperature change here, T1, at node 2, T2, at the middle, Tm. And then the equivalent force is given by this one. How can we obtain this formula? Of course, again from here, okay? Using the interpolation, Lagrange interpolation. And then we can express the temperature, and then we can integrate. All of the details in my book, okay? Is available in my book. I just here write the results because the computation is just simple mathematics. Nothing is difficult, right? Just integrals, simple integrals. I think junior high school students can do these integrals also, right? But if you want to see the details of the mathematical computation, please refer to my book here, section 593. Any questions so far? So it's complete. We have already all matrices we need. Okay. D is unknown, right? FA is unknown. So this is announced. This is we can calculate FP plus FD. So this is our discretized element equations. Complete already. For at least for quadratic distribution, we can use this one, right? Of course, for higher distribution, I think usually in practice, even this quadratic is no need because usually we can divide into many elements and then become close to linear. So the practical one is linear, I think, linear formula. Because if this is one element, right? But this is if the bar we have bar and then the distribution is a little bit random, the temperature distribution like this. Normally we can divide, right, into several elements, and for each element we can model. Oh, this is quadratic. Then even though maybe not quadratic, we can approximate, or even we can use more elements. Okay. And then we can say, oh, this is linear. So we approximate with piecewise linear, right? If piecewise, it means consists of linear for each element, okay? The temperature. So that's the practical approximation in practice. Maybe just use linear is enough. Any questions so far? So far, so good? Or still confused? Still confused until I present the example, right? But the example will be next week, not today. Not enough time, I think. Later we will have example. So this is the summary. Again, what we are talking today is what? The formulation of very simple element. The most simplest element, bar element, right? I think this is the most simple. When we formulate this, what we did, we have bar structure and then we divide it into several elements and then we consider a typical element like this, right? Remember. And then we apply the principle of displacement for this element only, not the whole structure. Again, for this element only. And then we assume the displacement using these shape functions, okay? The graphs of this function is typical like this, have Kronecker delta and partition of unity that we talk about, right? And then because of this, and then we have strain, and then we have equation, discretized equations. KD equal F. What is F? F actually consists of 3. FA is the actual applied nodal force to balance this one to make the element in equilibrium. This is still announced. Okay, this is announced. So we have to announce. But yes, we cannot solve directly because we have to assemble first, and then when we assemble, this will disappear because imbalance is under, right? And then we have equivalent nodal body, not body force, sorry. Equivalent nodal due to axillary distributed. This is FP. I used B in the past. The equivalent nodal due to distributed axial force and then due to temperature. That's our discretized equation, our finite element equations. But what is K? This one. What is FA? FA1, FA2. What is B? Oh, this is wrong. N transpose, right? N transpose. So this should be N transpose. N transpose B dx, and then this is due to temperature. Transpose EA alpha. For if all constants, E constants, A constants, temperature change constants, we can just use this formula, right? Easy to remember for all constants. This is N transpose. For all of course, for constants, just L over 2. P and P, right? Fp or constants. That's our summary today. So we have equation already, and then later we can use this in the context of what? You can guess. Direct distribution method. This is just one element. But in the past, I mean the previous one is the problem simpler than this, because in the previous one we don't have this one, right? The force is only on at the nodes on the previous problem. The more complicated thing is we have P, we have also temperature increase. So the equations in the previous one is this one. When we talk about 1D bar, truss, we transform and so on, okay? But here just add to our model some complexity because of the presence of this and temperature, okay? But the basic equation remain the same. Once we have these formulations, again, go back to DSM. You can use either DSM-A or DSM-P to solve the structural problem, bar structure problem. And for example, like this, but I will discuss this, maybe not this problem, but more simpler to solve the bar problem. It means to solve, it means what? We can obtain the displacement, we can obtain the stress, normal force there to solve for static problem, okay? This is an example of the problem that we can solve, use that one easily. This is easy problem. Given a steel bar of the diameter 16 meters or 16 millimeters, so we can calculate A, pi divided by 4, 16 square, right? And then subjected to axial distributed force, let's say this is 5 kilonewton per meter, or in millimeter is this one, right? 5 Newton per millimeter, X along the bar, and let's say concentric force 10 kilonewton, the length of the bar 2.5 meter. This is the data of E for steel. This is the diameter, I think this is like reinforcement bar, right? For concrete. This is the area. And then we can model use 2 elements, for example. Don't have to be the same length. This is just example, right? But of course, we can use the same length. We can use DSM-P, like in here, we remove the spot. But we can also use DSM-A, of course, okay? Up to you. Later, we can calculate the displacement and then calculate the stress, strain. That's all. We solve the problem by finite element. But until next week, today is up to this point. Any questions for today lecture? Come on, if you have. We still have time, about 5 minutes. Yes or no? I think I will stop recording.
Not